Okay, hello. Welcome, everyone. So we can start our practice without having to put forth any effort or to do anything in particular. Just to be aware of what's happening right now is more than enough. Thich Nhat Hanh and also Master Su Yun recently spoke about this teaching of to stop. And for many of us, this may seem to be an insurmountable task. Just like we are driving a car that's out of control. Actually, our mind is already out of control. And we are driving the car very quickly, and the road is icy, and we are screaming and yelling and going crazy at this out of control situation. So, this notion to stop can seem really intimidating. But actually, the kind of stopping that Thich Nhat Hanh and Master Su Yun are talking about has nothing to do with someone in particular, a particular place or a particular time. So, who are we when we are not someone in particular? And where are we when we are not someplace in particular? Our practice of meditation can be one that is applicable and can arise naturally in any situation at any time. It doesn't need to be explained for us. The conditions don't even need to be suitable or ideal, but our natural state of awareness can be paramount. And we can attend to the body with our sincere breathing. When we start to open up to the present moment experience that is not totally reliant upon a particular person or a particular place, we can then begin to look closely and to notice what's happening. What are we aware of? And we can be aware not from this perspective of the ego or some importance that we are giving to a particular person or a particular place or a particular time in our lives. But rather the importance is on the breathing itself, the noticing itself, the awareness itself. And that is more than enough. Meditation is a time when we can be as sincere as possible, as authentic as possible. To really embrace, to really step into this mind ground, this reality body. Don't take the mind too seriously. How you feel is less important. What you think is less important. Just breathing is enough. Just aware is enough. The mind can go in so many directions, but this noticing faculty, this awareness faculty, not going anywhere. Just breathing and being aware is enough. When something else gets involved, just breathing and being aware is enough. Turn the curiosity that focuses outward to get something, to look at something, to be involved with something. turn it around so that we begin to look into the present moment experiencing inside as something that is interesting, nourishing, rich, curious. Dropping any assumptions that we have about ourselves, and just to look into the present moment experiencing. Now, when these certain meandering thoughts come to mind about a dream or a story or our identity, whatever it may be, we don't get so befuddled by them because we have entered this cave of our mind, not looking for mud or spiders. We are looking for the diamonds. We are looking for our true nature. So the noticing itself, the awareness itself, moment by moment, is to illuminate and liberate these erroneous fixations, these nonsensical entanglements, and to continue looking very closely just breathing and aware. noticing. Showing up. Whatever we do get involved with, we can enjoy to step back, be aware, to notice. Any experience, we step back, not to be involved, just to be aware. Okay, so we're going to go now into some Zen teachings. This was a letter written to a construction manager from a Zen master. When great people want to cut off the road of birth and death, they must abandon everything they have hitherto treasured. Then their six senses will naturally be clean and naked. Abandon everything that they have up until now treasured. Then their six senses will be naturally clean and naked. To cut off this road of birth and death is to end this stress and trouble of self-experiences that are arising and passing away. Identifying as the wave rather than as the ocean. If they practice like this, one day they will get a glimpse and won't worry that the road of birth and death might not be cut off. If they do not make real, true application basic and want a lot of knowledge and a lot of interpretation, taking it to be the subtlety of independent attainment, instead, they will be blown colder and hotter by the wind of knowledge and interpretation, getting dizzier by the day. They bring this trouble on themselves. It is no one else's fault. Real, true application basic. To abandon everything that you have up to now treasured. So what is it like to be in a embodied position where you are giving up everything that you have up to now treasured? And this is to be in accordance with the truth and with reality. It's not something that's said for, so that individual people can have a particular experience. Whatever you treasure, whatever is yours, is just accumulated and is just there because of certain conditions that are changing all the time, temporary. What's outside the door, we have no idea. When we walk outside the door, what's going to be before? We have no idea. Everything's changing all the time. So these people who want to cut off the road of birth and death, this road of suffering, if they do not make real, true application basic, that is to abandon everything that you have up to now treasured, that basic application, to do it now. and want a lot of knowledge and a lot of interpretation, taking that to be the subtlety of independent attainment. So that is to take your understanding or your perception to be the richness of direct experience, the truth experience. Then instead of any kind of attainment or awakening or realization, they will simply be blown colder and hotter by the wind of knowledge and interpretation, getting dizzier by the day. They bring this trouble on themselves. It is no one else's fault. So, to take responsibility for real, true, basic application of abandoning everything that we have up to now treasured. And this is swimming in the ocean. It's not to sink to the bottom and drown, but it's to be fearless in the ocean, which is quite scary. And yet fearlessness is also there. Generally speaking, in the accurate transmission of Chan, that is, the accurate transmission of Zen, even if you have thoroughly awakened and achieve balance to reach complete ending of leakage, so that's kind of like a ending of wasting energy. All of your energy is not leaking out. It's going to ending in and of itself. Generally speaking, in the accurate transmission of Zen, even if you have thoroughly awakened and achieve balance to reach complete ending of leakage, and also can control wrong action and accept flavorlessness, having gone through these several layers of barriers, you still haven't fulfilled your life's aim. You should know that when past masters brought out a dynamic and showed a state to remove entrapments and break up nests, they never had any doctrines at all to give people for them to construe as principles. Even if you get it, that's not it. Yet there was still the concern that people might someday mistakenly create rules to disturb students, supposing that the true transmission of Zen must have such things, far from realizing that a swift hawk does not strike a sparrow in a cage. So we'll finish the teachings we were looking at from Master Su Yun this past week. And we left off with kind of where do both easiness and difficulty lay for a beginner, someone who's a beginner on the path. And Master Su Yun spoke about this believing mind. Belief that this mind of ours is fundamentally Buddha. Fundamentally free. to stay with the practice, to stay with our mindfulness of breathing, perhaps. So, where do both easiness and difficulty lie for an old hand? By old hand is meant one who has called on learned masters for instruction and has undergone the training for many years, during which their body and mind were mature for it, and they were clear about the method which they could practice comfortably without experiencing any handicap. The difficulty met by a monk who is an old hand lies in this feeling of comfort and clearness in which they stop and stay. Thus, because of their stay in this illusion city, they do not reach the place of precious things, i.e., the perfect nirvana. They are fit only for stillness, but are unfit for disturbance, and their training is, therefore, not completely effective for really full use. In the worst case, the practitioner will, when coming into contact with their surroundings, give rise to feelings of like and dislike, and of acceptance and rejection, with the result that their false thinking, both coarse and fine, will remain as firm as before. Their training will be likened to the soaking of a stone in water and will become ineffective. As time goes on, weariness and laziness will slip into their training, which will become fruitless in the end. When such a monk is aware of this, they should immediately give rise to the Hua To. What is this? And rouse their spirits to take a step forward from the top of 100-foot pole that they have reached. This state of stillness that one reaches, the expression that comes from stepping forward from the top of a 100-foot pole, can be described as both the hearing and its object came to an end, but I did not stay where they ended. Not to stay in stillness, not to sink in stillness. Not to be like a stone soaking in water. When such a practitioner is aware of this state, of a stone soaking in water, they should immediately give rise to the Hua To again. This deep questioning, deep doubt, deep curiosity, and rouse their spirits, their meditation method, to take a step forward from the top of a 100-foot pole that they have reached, until they reach the top of the highest peak on which they will firmly stand, or the bottom of the deepest ocean where they will walk in every direction. They will cast away their last link with the unreal and will walk freely everywhere, meeting face to face, or substance to substance, essence to essence, with Buddhas and patriarchs. Where is the difficulty? Is this not easy? Okay. They will cast away their last link with the unreal. Now, the unreal here is the false conception that your mind is not Buddha, and that this reality and this mind ground that we find ourselves in is different from the mind ground of Buddha. That our ordinary mind is separate from the enlightened mind. That our neuroses and our complicated thinking and beliefs are in any way solid, true, or real. Huatou is one mind. What is this? This one mind of yours and mine is neither within, nor without, nor between the two. It is also within, without, and between the two, and is like space, which is immutable and is all-embracing. Therefore, the Huatou should not be pulled up or pushed down. If it is pulled up, it will cause disturbance, and if it is pushed down, it will cause dullness, and so will be in contradiction with the mind nature, that is, the immutable mind-body, the existing fundamental pure mind, the all, suchness itself, and not in line with the mean, not in line with the middle way. Everybody is afraid of false thinking, which they find difficult to control. But I tell you, dear friends, do not be afraid of false thinking, and do not make any effort to control it. You have only to be aware of it, but should not cling to it, follow it, or push it away. It will suffice to discontinue your thinking, and it will leave you alone. Hence the saying, the rise of falsehood should be immediately cognized, and once cognized, it will quit. Perceived, known, to become aware of. However, in this training, if the practitioner can turn this false thinking to their own advantage, they will look into where it arises and will notice that it has no independent nature of its own. At once, they will realize the non-existence of this very thinking and will recover their fundamental mindless nature, followed immediately by the manifestation of their pure self-natured Dharmakaya Buddha, which will appear on the spot. In reality, the real and the false are the same in nature. The living and the Buddhas are not a dualism, and birth and death and nirvana, as well as enlightenment and distress, all belong to our self-mind and self-nature and should not be differentiated, should not be either liked or disliked, and should not be either grasped or rejected. This mind is pure and clean and fundamentally is Buddha. Not a single dharma is required in the quest of enlightenment. Why so much complication? Tan, which means to inquire, investigate, look into, usually offered at the end of a meeting, shared to urge the disciples to inquire into or ponder over the real meaning. Okay, questions or sharing experience? Someone said they feel enlightened, and that just brought for me this notion of our defilements and our negative mind states not being separate from enlightenment. So, feeling enlightened, looking into this, looking itself.
I feel it's a very important teaching that I will save in my YouTube, one of my folders and playlist folders, and I'll study it again a few more times. What I wanted to, I don't know if it's a question, or maybe I'm just sharing my experience and sharing an experience that I don't know why it happens. And I understand that I don't need to understand it, so I'm not going to say to you, I would like to understand. I get that I don't need to understand it, but maybe I'm a little bit curious why it happens, and maybe you can give me some guidance on how to be with it and have some faith that it will transform itself naturally. So it's a silly thing. I hope it doesn't sound silly, but it came up with one of my other Zen masters a few months ago. And somebody else in the Sangha said this. And I feel that was a gift for me because I would never have felt able to make it conscious and verbally express it. So the fact that somebody else said it, I feel was the universe, was Buddha, beginning to open the door for me to get to know it. So I'm sorry if it sounds silly. I hope it doesn't sound silly. When I'm meditating well, and I may be close to experiencing emptiness or oneness, I get very upset. And the other guy that was sharing this a few months ago, he said, oh, beauty makes me upset. And I know it sounds silly, and I'm really sorry to say it, but the beauty does make me very upset, so much upset, that it puts me off experiencing emptiness and oneness because, the experience is just too great, too awesome, it's too wonderful, it's too beautiful. So my heart isn't strong enough to be in that experience. So if you could maybe help me come to terms with that experience that I have, that, I don't know, it's a fear. You mentioned the word scary. So it's probably a sadness and a fear together, if I'm honest. So that's true. It's a great sadness and a great fear together at the same time that I experience. So I'm absolutely stunned that I've verbalized this, I've shared this with you all. You know, that's just phenomenal in itself. The fact that I've told you this is just shocking to me. So I don't know. So that's my sharing. Thank you for listening, Sangha.
Yeah, there's a lot of reactions that come up, and you shouldn't get too involved with those reactions. They are temporary, and if you are more consistent in your way of practice, like if you were a monk or a nun, then those kind of reactions dissolve themselves more and more fully. Or if you're very kind of involved in the right way, monk or nun, or practicing full time, that level of consistency, then you're going to be in a way of being where your natural mode of operation is detachment. So you're just detaching all the time because maybe you're moving around, you're living an ascetic lifestyle, you don't have a lot of amenities, things that you kind of, let's say that you leave the water in the kettle, so it gets rust in there, and then when you boil it, you see that there's rust in there, and you're kind of taken aback. And as you've been a practitioner for quite a while, you're going to have a relationship with clean water, emptiness, right? You're going to have these experiences, but the rust keeps building up. And then when this is just my interpretation, when you face that clear water shows up, you'll notice that there's rust in it, and that is a bit frustrating. And it's all kind of different emotions or feelings that can come up in doing that, but it's the particular emotion or the particular feeling isn't as important as the awareness of it. And the more over time that you are aware of that awareness, the less the quantity of the rust, or the quality of it, or the color of it, all the dimensions of it are going to be relevant, because you see that it's just rust. And it's not something that you need to ultimately waste your time on. But that's right. I mean, that's why it goes with that fear is called fear for a reason. Anger is called anger for a reason. Delusions are called delusions for a reason, because that's the experience at that moment. And we have a lot of small attachments and small grasping in our daily life, and this kind of, it's leaving the water in the kettle. So the rust builds up, and then when we boil the water, we see all these pieces of rust coming up. So even though we can see how clear the water is, we can kind of see the mined ground, we're also kind of taken aback by the rust that is there, showing itself. If you're keeping the water boiling all the time, then there's going to be less rust showing up. And if something does show up, I mean, a bug can go into the kettle or whatever. You're not identifying with water needing to be a certain way, because the mind itself is the reality body. The mind itself is the Buddha. So the things that are coming up in the body or the mind are not really that important. You are aware of them, you recognize them, maybe you make use of them, but they're not important in terms of a separate self that's going through them. But it's like you acclimatize yourself to that experience. And even, monks and nuns may get acclimated to that for a while, but then you get involved with something or you have more responsibilities, and now those things come up and you identify with them again. You kind of try to figure them out, or why is it happening like this, or what brought this up in me. But it's just rust. And it's not separate from the Buddha. So it's like, in an intensive way, especially when we have trauma and things like that, you have this big wash, this big, toxic fumes of that trauma response and that negative thinking and that worry and that fear and that whole situation come onto you. And it's very overwhelming. And then, of course, it goes away. But it was empty the whole time. It was never solid to begin with, and you didn't have to be kind of overwhelmed by it, even though we are, right? We do, yeah.
That's really helpful when you said trauma response, and now I'm thinking, and I know thinking is a waste of time, but maybe that's an explanation. Maybe I am having a trauma response to emptiness. Is that possible, that I'm having a trauma response to it?
For me, I think the deeper that we get into our affinity, like our strong connection point to the mind itself or awareness itself, especially at the beginning, right? And we're all beginners here in right 99% of the ways that we live. And also we're 100% Buddhas as well, which is curious. When it becomes more like pervasive, this experience of just awareness itself, then when those things do come up in the midst of that, it's a little bit more intense, because we're still identified with the separate self entity. We're still identified with the real true person and a real true story. That's our habit energy. So, you'll still have these sparks come up when you're in that open state of mind, and it makes them all the more dramatic, because your ego is trying to give importance to those traumas or that tension, that tightness, just out of habit, to grasp onto the rust. Because we're living all the time like that, right? I like this, I don't like that. We're involving in our preferences and indulging in our self-fixated thinking. So when we get into our meditation practice, and then that all kind of falls away, especially if we start practicing more regularly, and now our mind is more open and aware and bright, but that that deep thing comes up, we grasp onto it naturally. But then, I think it was even said somewhere in one of these texts we looked at, but we look at it in such a way, with the brightness of our awareness, where we don't discriminate against it.
I'm still not clear. I think you're saying several things that I'm sure that you're saying several things that I don't yet understand. What I was trying to convey is that it is the clear awareness, it is Buddha nature that is scaring me.
Well,
It is the clear awareness itself. It is Buddha nature itself that is scaring me.
Well, who's being scared?
It's just scared. There's no Michelle there because, as you know full well, Auntie, in that Buddha nature, there is no individual. That's the point. We know already, Banti, there's no Michelle there. But there is great scaredness there. There is great sadness there. There is great beauty there. I might not be there as an individual, but God knows and Buddha knows there is fear there, there is sadness there, there is beauty there. Sorry for shouting.
So, if I can go to the last paragraph of the text. In reality, the real and the false are the same. The living and the Buddhas are not a dualism. And birth, death, and nirvana, as well as enlightenment and distress, all belong to our self-mind and self-nature and should not be differentiated. So participating in this practice of differentiation is seeing this as different from that, creating the dualism. Okay? Should not be either liked or disliked. We should not indulge in either like or dislike. Of course, I don't like fear and I like pleasure. Should not to do like that. And should not be either grasped or rejected or pushed away. This mind is pure and clean and fundamentally is Buddha. Not a single dharma is required in this quest of enlightenment. Why so much complication? Inquire. But we inquire with something like a huatou, not with our intellect, not with our discriminatory mind. We look into the mind ground.
I don't think I use my thinking mind when I'm in the business of meditation. But my question to you is it possible that when you are in state of emptiness and oneness, is it possible to experience emotion? Is it possible to experience very deep, very strong, very intense emotion when you are in a state of oneness, in a state of emptiness, without your individual, the thinking left long ago, the individual left long ago, but it's still possible to have emotions, is it not?
If you see it from the self point of view, then clearly it's not from a state of oneness or emptiness. And the notion that there is.
Answer my question. I didn't use the word self. My specific question was, when you are in a state of emptiness, is it possible to experience emotion? That was my specific question. Do you think you could answer that directly?
No, not by the definition that I would use. You would not be experiencing an emotion in a state of emptiness, from my understanding.
So, I'm going to paraphrase you. You're telling me, Bhante, that in a state of emptiness, because we need to move forward with this, we can't just remain confused. I think it would be sad and unpleasant if we just all remained confused. So you're telling me, Bhante, that in a state of emptiness, it is not possible to experience emotion. Is that what you're saying?
I don't know what your definition of a state of emptiness is. I don't know what you necessarily mean by that.
Okay, now we're on the same page. so okay, so we're on the same page. So are you saying to me that for me to understand why I'm experiencing this strong emotion, I might need to understand what is the state of being I'm in? Is that what you're saying?
No.
Well, no, I mean, understand is a misleading word because, of course, we both know that we don't need or want to think about it. So even what we are doing now in trying to bring, we are in our individual egos now, using our personalities, using our thinking conscious mind. Even what we're doing right now, I don't know if it is wise. I don't know if it is helpful. I don't know if what we're doing now has any use or help at all for what for the experience that I have, that even when you use the word traumatic response, maybe it's wrong of me to resonate with that. Maybe it's wrong of me to identify with that phrase you used. So I'm not sure in us trying to apply our thinking to this, I'm not sure what that's going to achieve.
Yeah, I would agree. It's like trying to apply your thinking to understand neuroscience. That's not what neuroscience is about. Your thinking couldn't be more than irrelevant. So it's recognizing the irrelevance of our discriminating mind, what we like or what we dislike, and to stop differentiating. That's the practice, that's the action, that's to arrive at the pivotal point.
Well, that's your practice now, and that's your understanding now, but I am only concerned with a particular specific experience that I have. I haven't done much thinking about it. It's not a thinking experience, it's not a cognitive experience, it's emotional experience. So, in many of your answers and explanations, You have spoken about my thinking mind, my ego. You didn't use the word ego. You've spoken a lot about my discriminating mind, which really is not what I'm concerned with. I'm concerned with an emotion experience I'm having when I am meditating very, very well. And when my discriminating mind has disappeared, I'm having a strong emotional experience, and I'm concerned, why am I having a strong emotional experience when my thinking mind isn't here, when there's an enormous amount of space and emptiness? Why am I having a strong emotional experience?
I don't know, but I wish that you will resolve it and awaken completely. Okay, thank you. Anyone else have a question or sharing experience or something to share?
I do, Bhante. During my meditation, and I have this happen a lot as part of being a pet owner, I guess. As my pet wants to come over and nudge me or try to get under the blanket I'm under, try to scratch my arm just to get my attention. And I'm trying to figure out the best way to go about that. Like maybe put him in another room while I'm meditating. It just doesn't seem... it's not what I want to do. But I thought maybe instead of experiencing the breath, I could maybe experience the scratching, experience the nudging. But that's what I've been experimenting with today. So maybe you have some input that would be appreciated, but if not, that's okay too.
Well, it's all one big experiment, so don't take it too seriously, and just do your best to practice as you know how. You have some experience, so just keep trial and error and see how it goes. That's the kind of the main modality for figuring out if something is working for us or not. You try it and you see what the effect is. If it's a bottle of wine, you will probably know pretty quickly in the morning what the effect is, right? You won't need to wait too much. And there's also mental and physical actions that we can take internally or, just with our bodies that also have an immediate effect. So we know that makes us tired or confused or angry or whatever. So reduce those activity and try more activity to find a skillful way, that brings benefit, simplifies, stabilizes, empowers, and you use your gut, is what you have to do. If you do good, you feel good. If you do bad, you feel bad. And be ready to, receive feedback. If it's a gift to get feedback, especially from someone who's more experienced than you, it's really a gift. And I mean, I I will find myself, I would probably like to ask my teacher about, to not to necessarily insult me, but tell me what's my problem, what's the most foolish thing about me, and it's so busy. I don't know what kind of response I would get. Um, but yeah, so be ready to get feedback and keep moving forward, keep trying, keep showing up, and don't rely so much on the discriminating mind or the picking and choosing mind. You just try and you experience and you learn from your experience and then you continue. You don't just keep picking and choosing or discriminating or I like this, I don't like that. There's enough of that already, right? I prefer baths over showers. I don't need to ruminate on that. And I especially don't need to bring that to my meditation practice, that discrimination. I sure could do more meditation and find out through experience kind of what's going on. But the discrimination of this over that and this meditation experience and etc. and telling other people about it, it's just to reinforce the discriminating mind. And ultimately, it's, if you want to know more about it, you should have more experience with it, right? You don't need to ask someone else about it, actually. Other people don't have the answers for us. If they're, a Zen master or something, then they can throw a fruit at our head. But, those kind of people are very rare. And we might not come across them.
Thank you, Bhante.
Yeah, thank you, Morgan.
I think I'd like to share a little something. I had a very unstable night and morning, and I would like to thank you so much for providing this stability for me in my practice today, because during my meditation I kept thinking about stuff, and your guidance was very helpful for me to truly receive a benefit of the meditation. And for the Dharma sharing or the reading, the part that really stood out to me was when he said to take a step off of the 100-foot pole. That, like, if you're just isolating yourself and only practicing in calm, peaceful, perfect conditions, that the benefit won't go very far. So that was what I'm going to carry with me from this today. And thank you.
Thank you, Bree. Yeah, and I've seen that. I mean, what good is our meditation practice if we can't bring it to adversity, adverse conditions, sickness, difficult situations, environments, lack of sleep, lack of food. We shouldn't force ourselves into those positions, like you shouldn't be getting drunk, so that you can deal with the hangover, because trust me, there's enough difficulty already. But our practice isn't worth much unless we can really bring it into difficult situations and keep our stability and practice our non-discrimination. Yeah, I've got a lot of benefit from that way of practice by following my teacher in Myanmar and just being in, really intense, difficult situations, traveling in the countryside and with a lot of people, a lot of noise, not having any control over what's going on, but having to kind of follow and try to be involved and try to stay with the practice in the midst of all that, of not being in control and bumping heads with all different personalities and how can you stay to be not relying on your discrimination, but relying on your Buddha mind, your awareness mind, your mindfulness, mindlessness. It's when great people want to cut off the road of birth and death, they must abandon everything they have up to now treasured. Now, right? It's a slap in the face. It's Jesus slapping you in the face, or the Buddha slapping you in the face. I don't know if the Buddha would do that, but if the Buddha did do that, you should be very honored. That would be so wonderful to get slapped in the face by the Buddha. Right? Can you imagine the most completely wise, compassionate, loving, wonderful person? He chooses to do that. They choose to do that. What a gift. It's now. It's the experience of now. And to be, to abandon everything you have treasured, because it's not to reject those things or to put them in a pile and burn them or to burn your house down. Bree, don't call me after you burn your house down and say, Bhante, I did it. What's next? It's to abandon what you've treasured. So it's the treasuring, it's the grasping that's essential. It's to abandon your grasping now. That's the pivotal point. And that's something we can come back. We can burn our house down again and again and again. It's not just that one experience. I've burned my house down. Everything's gone. I get to start fresh and new. It's moment by moment to abandon everything that you've treasured and to enter the pivotal point of freedom. The Buddha mind. Whereas if we want a lot of knowledge and a lot of interpretation, a lot of knowledge and interpretation, sure, it can be about the Buddhist teachings and the texts and different levels and styles of meditation. Yeah, but it's just anything, everything. If we do not make the real, true application basic, and we want a lot of knowledge and a lot of interpretation, taking that to be the subtlety of independent attainment, it's like taking a lot of intellectual knowledge and interpretation to be a cloud. It's not a cloud. You shouldn't take it as such. So instead of attainment or independence, you'll be blown colder and hotter by the wind of knowledge and interpretation, getting dizzier by the day. They bring this trouble on themselves. It's no one else's fault. So we have to take responsibility to open ourselves to this place of a non-discriminatory mind, and a mind where we are not, wanting a lot of knowledge and interpretation, and where we are making real, true application basic. So to arrive in the here and the now, in the ultimate I dwell. And the Buddhist community is a place where we can do this in a lot of different ways. Living together in community, practicing like this. And so it's not just an isolated way. It's a way that we can be with one another. It's a way that we can relate to monks. If we find a Buddhist temple in our area, be careful. Don't be sign up to a payment plan or something the first time you go there, because it's not some kind of a blindness or deafness or dullness. It's a vividness. It's authenticity to be non-attached, to abandon rather than to grasp. So you're not pulled around by your nose, but you are laying down everything that you treasure. Your identity, your body, your mind, your possessions, your ideas about yourself and the world, everything. And in that moment, there's a present moment experiencing that is not intellectual, but is a lived experience. And there's a lot that can come out of that. That intimacy, that authenticity, that's not in any way put on. It's the dropping of grasping.
I was just thinking that for me, the ultimate is the treasure. That's the point I was trying to make. The ultimate is this treasure. And maybe I'm just having a love response, a love reaction to the ultimate. Because, you know, it is the treasure of the cosmos. You know, how can you not have a profound response to the ultimate? And what is it you said? Something about, yeah, just you know, how can you not have a response? What was it you said about affect? You said being affected. You said something, immediate affect. Affect with an A, not effect with an E. Affect in the true sense of the word, which is emotion. So these are your words, Banti. You use the words, and I've written them down, and I will keep them, and you use them. You use the words immediate affect. That's what I was trying to express to you. In the ultimate, I experience an immediate affect because I am in the treasure. I am suddenly the treasure. Do you not experience an immediate affect being the ultimate?
Well, there's an immediate effect now. And the ultimate is like death. The king of death coming to knock on your door. They're not interested in what you have to say. They are not to consider about your past or your future or the kind of experiences that you've had or your position on those experiences. The king of death cuts it off right at the start.
That's the point, Banti, and you keep bringing in the individual ego all the time. And I understand this is something you want to teach people, but that's not what I'm talking about. I never mention myself thinking. I never mention myself discriminating. So, I cannot understand why you keep bringing up the discriminating mind. It's not something I mentioned. So it doesn't make sense to me that you bring that into what I've said. I mentioned experience, I mentioned affect, which is emotion. I mentioned the ultimate. At no point did I mention that I was thinking anything, or liking, or disliking, or wanting, or pushing away. At no point did I mention a discriminative mind, which is not present in the ultimate, as we both know. So you don't need to keep bringing it all the time, Banti. You don't need to keep bringing it in this conversation. So I suppose what I'm needing is more focus, more specificity on the words I'm saying.
I can't give you any specifics on the words that you're saying, but I can encourage mindfulness and detachment. So what I'm practicing with is to be aware of what's happening right now in the present moment. And I take the present moment to be a kind of treasure store for freedom, safety, renewal, and regardless of what that present moment experience is, the content of it or the story that can be built around it, there's an aliveness to it that is very effervescent. You know, it's like trying to get a hold of um, an Alka-Seltzer tab. Very difficult. So I touch that to be in relationship with the present moment experiencing, and I rely on that. I also rely on detachment, so to be aware of and maybe to have a sense of being involved with. So right now we in our Monk Life community Discord server. A lot of people are members of this community, and you know, we are one of the more active sanghas online, you know, probably one of the most active sanghas online. And in the midst of all that, you know, I'm certainly very involved with that in many ways, right? So this detachment is also a willingness to let go, you know, to say, okay, well, this is empty. And this is, of course, something that's very important to me, but I'm also willing to let it go. And so I try to work with the things that I get involved with, to interact with them from this place of mindfulness and detachment. And the detachment here is like a willingness to let go. Because I understand that, you know, I'm not enlightened, and I'm not really a master. I'm not a guru or something like that. So I'm limited in what I can do. But in what I can let go of, there's a lot more to work with. You know, I cannot build a house, for example, but I can let go of building a house. I cannot enlighten, you know, every person here in the way that I certainly would like to, right? But I can let go of doing that. I cannot quickly manage time zones, the differences in time zones, but I can quickly let go of that. So I'm more interested in what I can be aware of in the present moment, especially as it relates to present moment physical sensations in the body, and this mindset of being willing to let go, to detach, to be aware of, maybe even to be involved with, but to be uninvolved with that, to be willing to let go of that. And yeah, that's an active practice.
Yeah, I agree. And I think me thinking, grasping, and understanding, cerebral. What is it I'm after here? Am I trying to come up, am I trying to create a conscious thinking explanation, a theory for the for an experience in the ultimate? I mean, if that's what I'm doing here, what a fool I am. What a stupid person I am. You know, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. So I suppose what I'm saying is that I am aware that my thinking mind needs and wants to understand why I'm having such a strong emotional experience in my successful meditation practices. All I can do is be aware that my mind would like, needs, wants to think about that genuinely believe it is an insult to the ultimate and to humanity and to the cosmos. So, so maybe I just need to be forgiven for having this very grasping, thinking mind that is attacking the most beautiful experiences I have in my life, are being attacked right now, this moment, in this session, by my thinking mind. It's a violent act. In fact, I believe I am trying to kill my meditation practice right now by doing this.
Well, as a fool, you are in good company. I can assure you of that. So don't feel discouraged by it. All right. So maybe we will wrap up our foolishness together with Namo Tassa chanting, and then 3 sadhus. All right. Does it sound good for everyone? And thank you, Ayla, for your generous sharing today. Nikki, you want to say something? Are you raising your hand, Nikki? Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so I feel like there's a certain theme, and I just want to say that I've experienced a lot of what you 3 have shared today with myself. For instance, when I started meditating, I felt like I was suffocating. Couldn't catch my breath. I'd get up in shock. But I had to work through it, and the only way I worked through it was with my breath. Breath and trust. You get the awareness. You become self-realized. Just always go back to the breath, because then you're going to be being. You might not get the awareness instantly, but it will come, and there's your ultimate. See what I'm saying? That you have to breathe it out, and you have to trust. And that's 2 of my things that I constantly go back to, whether somebody's having a stroke or a baby. I don't need to judge it. I'm becoming more familiar with detachment, but I have to be. So the only way to give myself space is with the breath. And I just wanted to throw that in there. When we start to ask questions, it starts to show people that we're possibly not sure. It opens up the doors to maybe more negativity, and we already know that's not what we want to be. So we just have to be childlike in our understanding. I think that's the teaching along the way somewhere that I learned. And this is the moment. This is the moment. This is the moment. Without judgment, just breathe and feel. Thank you.
Yeah, and that awareness may arise in ways we don't expect it to. So maybe we're trying to become aware and we're focusing on the breath, but that awareness may arise in our vision, our hearing, our mind, not necessarily how we expect. So thank you, Nikki. Yeah. So yeah, let's do some chanting, and everyone's invited to unmute their microphones. Might not sound very good, but we can try to harmonize as best we can and enjoy. All right? Go ahead, Ayla. I want to make sure we can hear you chanting too. All right. Deep breath. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Sama Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Sama Sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Sadhu. Sadhu. Okay, dear friends, thank you all for being here. We will have our Buddhist book club tonight at it'll be 5 p.m. California time as usual. So, see you there. Bye bye. Be happy.